A century and a half after Charlemagne's death, his unified European empire had entirely collapsed. By the mid-10th century, the Kingdom of Germany was heavily fractured, bogged down by many petty rivalries and internal rebellions. These local disputes were quickly overshadowed by a terrifying threat from the east. Nomadic tribes known as the Magyars were tearing through Central Europe, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. In August 955, the crisis reached a breaking point. A massive force of up to 10,000 Magyar horse archers surrounded the city of Augsburg. To prevent the city from falling, King Otto I scrambled to assemble an army of heavy cavalry from across his divided territories and marched south. The Magyars caught Otto off guard. Light horse archers swept his flank, devastating the Bohemian Legion. Nearly encircled, Otto was saved when a heavy rainstorm soaked the Magyar bows. Deprived of their ranged weapons, they were crushed by Otto's heavily armored counterattack. The ensuing rout was relentless. Otto's forces pursued the fleeing Magyars for days across the flooded Lech River, hunting down the remaining soldiers and executing their captured leaders. Otto's absolute victory on the Lechfeld ended nearly a century of nomadic incursions into Western Europe. By physically defending the realm, he established the geographic boundaries of a new Western power. Otto leveraged the prestige of that battlefield triumph to secure the ultimate political prize. In 962, he marched into Rome and convinced the Pope to crown him Holy Roman Emperor. He now claimed total dominion over a sprawling territory that covered much of modern-day Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and northern Italy. But a title alone does not guarantee respect. In the east sat the true continuation of the Roman Empire, Byzantium. Safe behind the walls of Constantinople, the Byzantines possessed 1,000 years of unbroken history and immense wealth. To the sophisticated diplomats in the east, Otto was a barbarian warlord. He was a man ruling from the saddle of a horse, wearing a crown he had won through brute force rather than divine right. A sword can draw the borders of a kingdom, but holding an empire together requires cultural authority. To secure that kind of lasting legitimacy, Otto needed to connect his dynasty to the sophisticated traditions of the East. In 972, Otto arranged the marriage of his son, Otto II, to a 12-year-old Byzantine princess named Theophanu. This union was his ultimate diplomatic play to validate the Ottonian dynasty. Theophanu was raised at the pinnacle of medieval high society. She was educated in rhetoric and diplomacy, surrounded by the shimmering mosaics of Constantinople. The Ottonian court she arrived at was a completely different world. The government was nomadic, traveling constantly between rudimentary wooden fortresses to collect taxes and settle local disputes. Theophanu introduced the invisible power of the East to this rugged environment. She brought illuminated manuscripts, vast quantities of silk, intricately carved ivory, and even the dining fork. These objects were highly calculated tools. By physically surrounding the Ottonian royal family with the wealth and protocol of Byzantium, she crafted an aura of divine authority. She used these cultural imports to establish a sense of imperial continuity, forcing the rival dukes to acknowledge the throne as an institution that sat high above their own provincial interests. In 983, that stability shattered. Otto II died of a sudden illness at the age of 28, leaving the empire in the hands of a 3-year-old heir, Otto III. A power vacuum opened instantly. Xenophobic nobles rallied a rival named Henry the Quarrelsome, who kidnapped the toddler king to take the regency for himself. Lacking an army, Theophanu fought back with the political toolkit she had mastered. She used her diplomatic networks across Germany and Italy to isolate Henry politically until he was forced to return the child. With her son safely returned, Theophanu assumed the regency and full control of the Holy Roman Empire, supporting her rule with the Byzantine tradition of divinely appointed authority. In the middle of an insecure warrior society, an immigrant woman isolated a rival warlord and maintained total authority, without ever raising a sword. For the next decade, Theophanu ruled the empire. The historical record documents dozens of instances where she actively intervened in government affairs, settling legal disputes and issuing royal edicts. She stabilized the eastern borders, negotiated peace with the King of France, and aggressively patronized the arts, building the intellectual infrastructure of the realm. She was so secure in her position that she transgressed the political norms of the era. On official documents, she referred to herself using the masculine Latin title of co-imperatrix, co-emperor. She instilled in her son the concept of oikoumene, the ideal of a universal Christian empire. This vision changed how Otto III viewed his role, shifting his focus from local kingship to global leadership. Her presence changed the stylistic direction of Western European art. We can still trace that Eastern influence in the Romanesque stone of Cologne, where she chose to be buried inside the Church of St. Pantaleon. Otto I's military victory at Lechfeld established the geographic body of the Holy Roman Empire. But by importing the cultural prestige of the East and a vision of universal Roman rule, Empress Theophanu provided the ideological identity, the imperial soul, that allowed this new Western power to survive.